Long ago in Egypt, a civilization's power was built on the backs of slaves. The children of Israel, who had once been welcome guests, were now laborers beneath the cruel sting of Pharaoh's whip. Their days were filled with bricks, mud, heavy chains, and a soul-crushing despair. But from the depths of their suffering, a collective cry for freedom rose to the heavens. It was into this world of oppression that a child named Moses was born, at a time when a royal decree demanded every Hebrew boy be killed. His mother, in an act of desperate love, hid him in a basket woven from reeds and placed it along the banks of the Nile. By a plan far greater than any human one, Pharaoh's own daughter discovered the baby. She took pity on him and, against all odds, decided to raise him as her son. And so Moses, a Hebrew child, grew up within the opulent walls of the Egyptian palace. He was educated among princes, learning the ways of the world's most powerful empire. Yet deep within him, he carried the quiet, resilient heartbeat of his true people. One day, as a grown man, Moses witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster brutally beating a Hebrew slave. In a flash of righteous anger, he struck the Egyptian down and buried him in the sand. But secrets rarely stay buried. When his act became known, Moses was forced to flee for his life into the vast, unforgiving desert of Midian. There, among shepherds and the profound silence of the wilderness, his former life as a prince seemed to fade into obscurity. It seemed his story was over. Then came the fire, on what seemed like an ordinary day. While tending his sheep on Mount Horeb, Moses saw something impossible. A bush engulfed in flames, yet it was not consumed. As he cautiously stepped closer, a voice called out from the heart of the fire, "Moses, Moses." He answered, "Here I am." The voice then declared, "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. Now go to Pharaoh and tell him, 'Let my people go.'" Moses, a simple shepherd, trembled. "Who am I," he asked, "that I should go before Pharaoh?" The voice replied with a promise that would change everything, "I will be with you." When Moses asked for a name, for a credential to bring to his people, the answer thundered through eternity, "I am WHOIAM." So Moses returned to Egypt. He was no longer a prince, nor just a shepherd. He was a messenger, armed not with an army or a sword, but with unshakable faith and a simple wooden staff. Together with his brother Aaron, he stood before the most powerful man on earth and declared the words of God, "Let my people go." Pharaoh laughed. The idea of freeing millions of slaves, the engine of his entire economy, was absurd. To show his contempt, he made their labor even harder, their chains heavier, their suffering more intense. Moses cried out to God in his frustration, and thus began the great signs of judgment, 10 plagues that would shake the mighty empire of Egypt to its very core. First, the lifeblood of Egypt, the Nile River, turned to blood. Then came a plague of frogs, covering every inch of the land. Then swarms of gnats, and then buzzing of flies. A mysterious disease killed their livestock. People's bodies broke out in painful, festering boils. Hail, mixed with fire, shattered the fields and destroyed the crops. A cloud of locusts descended, devouring everything the hail had left behind. And then a suffocating darkness smothered the land for 3 long days, a darkness so thick it could be felt. With each plague, Pharaoh would briefly soften, only for his heart to harden. Once more, as soon as the affliction was lifted, he was a man locked in a battle of wills with the creator of the universe. Finally, the time came for the 10th and most terrifying plague, the death of the firstborn. God instructed his people to take a lamb without defect, sacrifice it, and mark the doorposts of their homes with its blood. He promised that the angel of death, passing through Egypt that night, would see the blood and pass over every house. Marked in faith, that night, a wail of anguish rose from every corner of Egypt. In every home untouched by the lamb's blood, from the highest official to the lowest servant, there was loss. Even Pharaoh's own palace was struck. The king's heir was dead. Broken, Pharaoh finally summoned Moses in the dead of night. "Go," he said, his voice choked with grief. "Take your people and your flocks, and leave, wasting no time." The Israelites began their exodus, carrying with them the wealth of Egypt and the precious, long-awaited hope of freedom. But scarcely had they left when Pharaoh's grief turned to rage. He changed his mind. Assembling his elite chariots and his entire army, he pursued the fleeing slaves, determined to drag them back to bondage. The people of Israel reached the edge of the Red Sea, only to see the dust cloud of Pharaoh's army approaching from behind. They were trapped, water before them, enemies behind them. Panic and fear swept through the camp. They cried out to Moses, "Were there no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" But Moses, his faith unwavering, turned toward the sea and raised his staff. "Do not be afraid," he commanded the people. "Stand firm, and you will see the salvation of the Lord, which he will bring you today." As a powerful east wind began to howl, the sea itself began to divide. The waters pulled back, rising into massive, towering walls on either side, revealing a path of dry ground glowing with a divine light. The Israelites walked into the heart of the sea, step by step, from bondage into freedom. When Pharaoh's army foolishly charged in after them, the waters held back by God's power were released. They crashed back together with immense force, swallowing the chariots, the horses, and the soldiers in a churning vortex. By dawn, the sea was calm again. Israel stood safely on the other side, looking back at the shores of their former prison. And there, on the banks of freedom, they sang a new song, the song of deliverance. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. From a slave condemned to die, to a prince, to an exile, to a deliverer, Moses led his people through the wilderness, guided by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. He would go on to meet God on the holy mountain, receive the law, and shape a scattered tribe of slaves into a nation, a people who would never again live for the whip of a king, but for the call of a covenant with their God. The story of Moses reminds us that no power on earth is greater than a determined faith. It shows us that even when we feel trapped between the sea and our enemies, God can open a way where there appears to be no way. Every sea has a shore, every bondage has an end, and for each of us there is a blazing bush, a moment where a voice calls our name. If this story stirred your faith, please follow and subscribe for more captivating retellings of Scripture. Each story is a powerful reminder that faith isn't just an ancient tale, it's alive, it's fierce, and it's profoundly relevant for us today. Be part of this community of light, share these stories, and let courage and hope rise again in the heart of every person who listens. Thank you for watching.